Dragonlance may have just revealed some of One D&D's plans for combat. Let me explain. Wizards of the Coast has a bit of a trend of hiding things in plain sight and leaving us to decipher what might indicate a change or shift and what might simply be a one-off occurrence. Some recent examples of this include the complete transformation of monster stat blocks that occurred in the Wild Beyond the Witchlight. This was a notable shift that seemed a bit out of place at the time, but was contextualized with the announcement at D&D Celebration later that year of what would eventually become known as One D&D. It was confirmed to us that the format of monster stat blocks that was found in the Wild Beyond the Witchlight is what would be carried forward into all future releases, as it made enemies feel a bit more in line with their player counterparts, it made stat blocks easier to parse and use as a dungeon master, and it made it so that monsters would much more consistently punch at their challenge rating. Another adjustment we saw was the inclusion of feats with backgrounds, which was first introduced in Strixhaven, a curriculum of chaos, back in November of 2021. While it was not immediately popular with fans, many complaining of issues of power creep, the trend has seemed to continue moving forward and was even published in the Character Origins Unearthed Arcana, where it became confirmed that a background will provide a first level feat. Obviously, with the UAs being playtest material, everything is still subject to change, but I would be truly surprised if this does. It appears that Wizards has only doubled down on this over the last year, even going so far as to change the structure of feats into small trees in an attempt to curtail some of the early level power spikes that could arise. All of this had got me wondering, in the weeks leading up to the release of Dragonlance, Shadow of the Dragon Queen, would there be something included within it that might suggest a future change that will come in One D&D? And I think there might be. A quick disclaimer here, everything that I'm about to say is obviously pure speculation and merely represents a possibility of what may happen. The point of this video is much more about the discussion that it brings to the game and whether or not this would be a good change. Something I have mentioned a few times on this channel and has essentially everyone who has ever played 5th edition is that there is a distinct power gap between martial classes and spellcasters in the game. I made a whole video about it and some suggestions that I think could improve the situation, which I will link in the description below as well in the end cards if you'd like to check it out. To briefly summarize though, spellcasters simply feel much more powerful, particularly once characters reach the early to middle levels than their martial counterparts. A big part of this is due to the fact that spellcasters maintain access to all the same incremental improvements that martials have, namely ability score improvements, class features, etc., but also gain access to an increasingly powerful catalog of spells that provide immense power and utility both in and out of combat. It simply boils down to options. Casters have far more options than martial classes do. You would think that this would be countered, in some capacity at least, by martial classes gaining access to a wider array of combat actions to flex their combat prowess, but this simply isn't the case. The standard action pool is identical between the two archetypes, though there is one major outlier, the Battlemaster Fighter. There have been many different suggestions brought to the table to bring parity between martials and spellcasters. One that I have been a very large proponent of is expanding the action pool for martial classes to include some of the Battlemaster Fighter's maneuvers. While this is unlikely to compensate for the massive damage potential that comes along with certain spells, it can at least address one of the glaring issues highlighted earlier, a lack of options. The flexibility and versatility that comes with the maneuvers can allow players to no longer have to choose between combat utility and damage, such as choosing between a grapple and an attack, a choice that spellcasters rarely need to make. The reason for this is that many of the maneuvers include both sides of the coin into the same action, therefore increasing the effectiveness of each hit. If you're enjoying this video, consider hitting the like button and subscribing. These small gestures go a really long way to helping others find my content. I'm also trying to hit a stretch goal of 1,500 subscribers by the new year, and I'm currently running a giveaway for a copy of Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen, so check the description or click the end card for details. Thanks. At this point, you may be wondering what Dragonlance has to do with any of this, and why I mentioned it at the start of this video. Something that became quickly apparent to me on my first reading of the new feats included in the book, namely the Squire of Solamnia feat, is that each branch of this tree includes a version of one of the Battlemaster maneuvers. The first level feat, Squire of Solamnia, gives the ability Precise Strike. This ability allows a character to grant advantage to themselves for an attack roll and add a d8 to the damage dice, a proficiency bonus times per long rest. Additionally, a use of it is only expended if the attack hits. This is very similar to the Battlemaster's Precision Attack. Though Precision Attack does not allow the user to grant advantage to themselves, they can opt to use it only once they've seen the attack roll and can use it multiple times in a single turn, provided at least that they have the available superiority dice. The fourth level feat, Knight of the Crown, offers the ability Commanding Rally. With this ability, a character can use their bonus action to command an ally within 30 feet that can see or hear them to immediately attack a creature using their reaction. If the attack is successful, that player can also add a d8 to the damage roll, and this can also be done an amount of times equal to their proficiency bonus per long rest. Contrast this with the Battlemaster's Commander's Strike. The abilities here are nearly identical, except that Commander's Strike requires the Battlemaster to take the attack action, but does impose no defined range restriction, though I would still give the edge here towards Commanding Rally. The fourth level feat, Knight of the Rose, grants an ability called Bolstering Rally. This ability allows the character to use their bonus action to select another creature within 30 feet of them that can see or hear them, including themselves, and grant them temporary hit points equal to 1d8 plus their proficiency bonus plus the ability modifier improved when this feature was taken. The maneuver Rally is essentially the same, just a bit worse as you lose the modifier of the proficiency bonus, and it relies on the Battlemaster having a reasonable charisma modifier to achieve maximum effectiveness. Lastly, the fourth level feat, Knight of the Sword, gives the ability Demoralizing Strike, an ability that allows a character to turn a successful hit into an opportunity to frighten a creature. The upshot here is that even if the creature is successful on their wisdom saving throw, they still have disadvantage on the next attack made before the end of their next turn. The Battlemaster's Menacing Attack is, once again, a slightly inferior version of the feature found in Dragonlance. All of the abilities granted by the various features under the Squire of Solamnia umbrella involve the use of a d8 in some way, the same as the Battlemaster's base superiority die. Though notably, the die size never increases for the Dragonlance feats. They also largely represent an improvement over their maneuver counterpart, but more on that later. And sure, this could easily all be chalked up to flavor. This feat tree is all about being a knight after all, so it would make sense for a knight to be particularly adept in combat, and what better way to sell that image than with examples of highly technical combat. But I think it's more than that, as there is still one more example of this happening that is completely unrelated to fighters or knights, and that's with the new Kender race. The Kender race has an ability called Taunt. A successful taunt gives a creature disadvantage on attack rolls against targets other than the creature that used the ability until the end of their next turn. This again is eerily similar to the goading attack maneuver, albeit obviously goading attack requires an attack whereas taunt does not. However, as taunt can be used as a bonus action rather than replacing an attack, the increased utility is still present. So then, with all this context established, what does this all mean for One D&D moving forward? I think it can point to a few potential options. Firstly, I believe that this could indicate the expansion of combat options for martial classes to include elements of the Battlemaster's maneuver pool, but updated to maintain parity with modern standards. The current maneuvers, while great, were originally written in 2014, when the game was, admittedly, very different than it is today. However, what is seeming increasingly less likely is a simple expansion of the basic combat actions to include these maneuvers. What wizards may do is provide different feat trees that can include some of these, or continue to iterate on the fighting styles already present. Secondly, I believe that there will be either a large rework or, potentially, the entire removal of the Battlemaster subclass. While I think it would be both unfortunate and very unlikely to remove the subclass entirely, as I still feel that there is a lot of niche flavor that it can offer, I do think that a heavy rework can be expected. Fundamentally, all of these Squire of Solamnia features are better in nearly every aspect to their maneuver counterpart, and it would strike me as odd to have an entire subclass undermined by a simple feat tree. Admittedly though, the Battlemaster does still have more options to choose from. And finally, the giant elephant in the room. Yes, all of the Squire of Solemnia features do have the prerequisite of being in a Dragonlance campaign, though that obviously does not preclude wizards from creating alternate features with no such requirement that might just be a little bit worse. So what do you think? Will wizards expand the use of the Battlemaster maneuvers in some way, or do you think that I'm just reading way too much into this? Check out some of my other One D&D content and be sure to enter the giveaway. Take care.